Shalom and good day all, this is Tehillim29 back again for the overall review and rating of Season 1 of Akuma through Netflix. And I must say, this series of Netflix of Akuma really took me by surprise. I will say, I will also include, it did take me a while for me to, I guess, warm up to the character that they were introducing to the series. And one of the best things I think sort of helped with this was having us learn more about the character as we got information from, I guess, the supporting characters around him. So, moving into, I guess, the area of Shingo and his importance in the story. Even though Shingo Umuragi has had his own series of Akuma-kun, the way this character was used, especially in the first couple of episodes, I felt was really good, because in it we get to see a small connection between Ichiro, who is the adopted son of him, and also himself, and how they sort of like see each other. And in the first case that you do see him involved is actually with Ichiro's particular case that's in this story. And we learn that this particular case in this story revolves around, we learned that the parents actually end up doing a bit of a contract with a demon because they killed their daughter. And yeah, as disturbing as the story is, I thought it was a real good way to sort of like see some of the character's shortcomings, or some of Ichiro's shortcomings, along with his help with Mephisto III, who is basically Mephisto II's son. The other places to which the character does show up is in sort of like further episodes as well throughout the series. And with those little bits of information that we get to understanding how Shingo ended up coming across Ichiro, to which we learned that he did have another name under Strophia, to which he was called Ishima. And it was in that time period to which we also learned that Shingo, along with Mephisto II, ended up coming and saving him from Strophia. The next character I want to move into is Mephisto II. And one thing I sort of did not expect to see with Mephisto II, who is basically the supporting character in the main original Akuma-kun series to Shingo. And yes, it's true, their beginnings weren't quite a perfect beginning. If you look into the original anime series and even into the manga, we do learn that these characters did actually struggle to get to know each other. And yet they didn't quite like each other. But by the time we moved to the Akuma-kun series of 2023, you can see that big changes have taken place, that they're practically good friends now, even though Mephisto still addresses Shingo as the original or first Akuma-kun. But he's also not afraid to help his son, Mephisto III, along with also not afraid to help Ichiro, who is the next Akuma-kun in line, when the time calls for it. Sometimes it's whether they ask for the help or not, but you do get to see the interaction between them. Next is moving into the character of Ichiro himself. Now, the very fact that this character took so long for me to, I guess, warm up to, it took at least the 5th episode for me to actually start to like the character. And the fact, one of the things that took a key standout in this, or a key standout in this particular situation, was actually the character of Starfire, and I was wondering, how does he connect to his past, and why did Shingo or the flute actually choose him? Even though we don't learn about why the flute actually chose him until the end, that bit of mystery did actually want me to, it did actually have me want to learn more and understand more about the character of Ichiro. Whether it's a certain way that he deducts and calculates things in a supernatural related case, that is one thing I really liked at the beginning. And I also wondered when we were going to see more of that throughout the series, because I actually quite liked that, because it helped me learn how the character also thought, or in their own thought process, went out of their way to sort of like work out how to solve the solution. And there were actually some things that he was able to solve a-okay, but there are things that he did also have a slight little struggling to solve. And that was well executed within the story. Next is Mephisto the Third. Now, with Mephisto the Third, you can definitely see that he does not put up with any of the crap with Ichiro. But he's got a deep love and respect for not only his father and his mother, but also for Shingo, who is the original Akuma-kun. Where Ichiro, I guess for his own love for his dad, we see him call him Dumb Dad, but we know that he still cares about him, especially when it comes to later episodes. And that's sort of like where you learn to separate how one is different from the other within the story. And it was just that to also help you discern the differences in characteristics between each other. Now, we move into the next lot of supporting character, or the next lot of characters being Sanae and her daughter Mio. And I must admit, I wasn't too sure about these characters at first, but when you start to see a case within the particular story involve them, it does make you wonder, why did this event occur, and how is Ichiro going to solve it? Of course, we do see a lot of things take place in regards to that situation within the episodes. And once the case is solved, one thing that really stood out in that particular case with the Sanae and Mio, when the husband / dad returned, as the character, or as the dad was leaving, I really liked the fact that Ichiro took up the stance to basically to defend Sanae and Mio against up against the husband, trying to persuade him to stay longer with his family. But he ended up still going ahead and leaving the family, even though he had just been briefly welcome accepted. Moving into the next character, now I'd have to say without this character, and that is the character of Strawfire. Strawfire is one character that once he turned up on the scene, you had questions. And I mean, without these questions, it was just instant. What is his connection to Ichiro? How do these two characters fit together in their past? What did he do to Ichiro in the past? And why does he call him Aishima? These things stood out to me directly after the episode. As to when the next episode appeared and he showed up, you could definitely see that he played a bit of some mind games with him. Yes, there were some cases to which demons were used, but other cases it was just completely human error in a situation. All until you start to reach the end, or the last two episodes being 11 and 12, to which we finally get the bridging stories that were needed to complete and give us a full understanding as to how Shingo came to find Ichiro, how Ichiro came to understand Shingo, the importance of how Mephisto II played in the finding of Ichiro. It was really quite amazing. And the very fact that Strawfire managed to return. Now, my question is, how did he manage to return? Yes, I understand that the character in the series is meant to be like a fallen angel. But I want to know how he managed to return after, like, his first defeat. Like, that question still remains sort of unanswered in this particular series. And I'd like to see it explored in another season. So, now it's time to move to the main key thing of what this video is about. And that is the overall rating and review of Season 1 of Akuma-kun 2023. Now for this, I'm going to go back over my original scores that I gave gave the episodes. So, and then after that, I'm going to give my main rating for the overall season for these things. So for the rating, now for episodes 2 or episodes 1 and 2, the main character's got a 7.5 out of 10. The supporting characters got an 8 out of 10 because I actually enjoyed the supporting characters. For the animation, a 7.5 out of 10. The soundtrack, an 8 out of 10. The story, an 8 out of 10. For episodes 3 and 4, the main character got a 7.5 out of 10. The supporting characters, an 8 out of 10. The animation, an 8 out of 10. The soundtrack, an 8 out of 10. And last but not least, the story, an 8 out of 10. Moving into episodes 5 and 6, this is where things began to change for myself in the story, to which both in episodes 5 and 6, it really began to increase my interest in the main characters in the story, to which the main characters in their rating got an 8.5 out of 10. The supporting characters, an 8 out of 10. The animation, an 8 out of 10. The soundtrack, an 8.5 out of 10. And the story, an 8.5 out of 10. Moving into episodes 7 and 8. As we look back over these previous scores and moving into an overall season rate or seasonal rating. So for the main characters, an 8.5 out of 10. The supporting characters, an 8.5 out of 10. The animation, an 8 out of 10. The soundtrack, an 8 out of 10. And for the story, an 8.5 out of 10. Moving into 9 and 10. The supporting character, the main characters, an 8.5 out of 10. The supporting characters, an 8.5 out of 10. The animation, an 8 out of 10. The soundtrack, an 8.5 out of 10. And also, last but not least, the story, an 8.5 out of 10. Moving into the last two episodes, being 11 and 12. For the main characters, I gave a 9 out of 10. Why? Because the way that this story ended, it just peaked. And I liked how things changed towards the end. And I must point out, Ichiro a little bit reminds me of Constantine. I'm just putting it out there. He reminds me a little bit like the character of Constantine in DC Comics. Not in regards to, say, area of sexuality, but more so in the area of the supernatural. It's the only other way to put it. In that he does sort of remind me a little bit of Constantine. After seeing like the overall story for episodes 1 to 12. For the supporting characters, an 8.5 out of 10. For the animation, an 8 out of 10. For the soundtrack, an 8.5 out of 10. And last but not least, for the story, a 9 out of 10. Now, moving into the overall season review, how does this change for each of these sections? For the main character, I will stay with the 9 out of 10. With the supporting characters, I will stay with the 8.5 out of 10. For the animation, as is consistent as it was in each episode, I will decide to give it an 8.5 out of 10. Into the area of the soundtrack, as consistent as the soundtrack was through each episode, I will give it a 9 out of 10. And last but not least, into the area of the story, I'd have to say that this overall season, is an underrated gem. And for this, I give it a 9 out of 10. Well, seeing that I've now finished my overall rating and review of this season, what was your favorite episode in this season? Who was your favorite character in this season? What's a character that you'd like to see return in the next season, should they do a next season? And what were your thoughts about the ending of this season? Until then, let's keep it colourful and have yourself an awesome day.
T-E